Welcome back to Minor League News and Brews. I am your host, Craig Toth, and today we're going to be talking about everything around the Pirates minor league system, giving you some beer reviews at the end of the show. But first, we are going to be recapping the Pirates 2024 MLB Draft, bringing back the guy who prepared us for it, at Joe Doyle MILB Future Stars Series. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
What's up, man? How we doing? Good to see you again. What has
Yeah,
it been, like a
yeah,
week?
yeah. It's been like we usually go a year without seeing each other. This time it's a week. You've been a very busy man. Ben Cherington and company have also been busy. The one thing that Pirates fans may not have been aware of is the fact that there was a new director of amateur scouting in charge of this draft. Justin Horwitz had been with the Boston Red Sox for his entire tenure. He was an intern there, moved his way up, and he was like the assistant director before he came over. So Ben Cherington knows him pretty well. But I didn't really see, as we were talking about briefly before here, not much of a different approach to this draft. Kind of seems like Charrington and company have a type, at least in the early rounds of the draft. I looked back, 2020, Jared Jones, 2021, Anthony Solometto, Bubba Chandler, 2022, Michael Kennedy, last year's draft, a guy we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago, Xander Meath. And then this one in the comp round A, they go Levi Sterling. So they do love their prep arms early.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates and you are given the luxury of a comp A pick every other year, it makes sense to take some shots, right? It makes sense to make some splashes. Now, I don't know if there is necessarily a tendency at the top of the draft. You know, it's Ben Cherington, it's Steve Sanders, it's Justin Horwitz. I mean, there's a lot of guys in that draft room. I'm sure Joe Delicari is in some way, shape, or form still involved in their draft process. So there's a lot of different, thinking minds in that war room. There's a lot of different ideas in terms of how to acquire the most value in any draft. But I tell you what, Craig, like when I look at this draft, when I look at the draft as a whole, not just the Pirates, it wasn't a terribly deep draft. You get into the third, fourth, fifth round, and you see a pretty big drop off, at least on the college side and on the high school hitter side, in terms of like projecting value. So I look at this as, hey, the Pirates were able to secure some of the more higher end talent toward the top of the draft. Connor Griffin is speaks for himself with all of the tools and the size and the physicality and the athleticism. But Levi Sterling has some really, really interesting release metrics, and he performed very, very well. He hasn't seen his velocity spike yet, but I have a feeling that if Levi Sterling is ever that guy that is 93 to 95, touching 97, which some people project he could be, there is some really diabolical stuff in what he can do on the mound. So, yeah, I mean, Sterling, you top on Wyatt Sanford, you top on Eddie Rinders, and all of a sudden, they went for upside in this class, and I think that's kind of how you had to do it.
Yeah, and going with the ceiling, narrative, and it definitely that's where it directs us towards. I mean, I was looking. We're talking about guys that are saying that if Connor Griffin, if you were going based on pure tools, all five tools, he could have been a 1-1 or in the discussion for a 1-1 in other drafts. There was the college heavy bat type of stuff, which I know that a lot of Pirates fans, as we were talking about in the preview, kind of wanted to go towards. But Connor Griffin, it kind of seems like, defensively, Ben Cherington said he's going to start out as a shortstop. Other people have said, he could easily move to center field and be a gold glover there. He's got the hit tool. He's got the power tool. He's got the speed. The one thing I did hear at least a few times listening to other draft previews, reading stuff, and then reading stuff after the draft is that, Connor Griffin people are questioning his swing a little bit. And I just kind of want to go to you, like, where do the questions like about that swing come from? It doesn't seem to be a decision type of problem. Is it mechanical, or where does that come from?
Yeah, Connor Griffin has some stiffness in his swing. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but when you look at the way that he actually performed over the course of the summer, over the course of this spring, there's not a whole lot of swing and miss in his profile. He makes it work. He still finds a way to put the ball in play, put his tools in motion. So to answer your question succinctly, yeah, the swing definitely has some rigidity to it. There's not the fluidness that you would see in a more traditional, conventional, like number one overall pick in any draft. And that rigidness is where folks kind of pause and go, okay, how much more can this guy unlock? Can he actually get to the plus raw power? Can he get to the above average to plus hit tool that he's shown? Or is the stiffness of this swing going to kind of hold him back from reaching his ultimate ceiling? So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Pittsburgh tries to work with him on that swing, whether or not they try to get him moving, get him a little bit looser, get him a little bit more rhythmic in the box. But there were other guys in high school that didn't have, like Bobby Witt Jr. is a guy that I go to. Bobby Witt Jr. didn't have the most fluid swing in high school that he has now. So, maybe with some different training, some different development, you attack the weight room a little bit differently. Connor Griffin can become a better athlete in the box. But to answer, yeah, to be a little bit more succinct, it's never stopped him from performing. It's just kind of holding him back from being the ultimate offensive player that he could be.
Well, I mean, that's definitely good to hear. And he is a young player, and there is plenty of time to develop. And we're talking about, the Pirates in the first 3 rounds of this draft got what were, kind of universally like top 100 draft prospects, which, I mean, they are garnering, you know, some good stuff there. I saw that. I think maybe you're a little bit higher on Wyatt Sanford than some people. I know that it's a defensive first player, but even at that, a very young kid, and maybe it's just that his defense is sticking out more now, and there's other tools that can develop. So, what did you see from Wyatt Sanford when you were scouting?
Yeah, I had Wyatt Sanford as my number 21 player on my board. I thought he could have gone easy. I mean, I still think he could have gone in the middle of the first round. I had him valued at the back third of the first round. The arm strength really ticked up this spring. He is definitely a shortstop through and through. I think some people are kind of discounting the offensive tools personally. I mean, the kid put on 12 to 15 pounds. He's got a lot of bat speed. I think there's some questions on the hit tool. He had some streakiness as it pertained to swinging at the right pitches in high school ball. He would get out in front on spin a little bit, but I mean, this is a guy that showed real impact with the bat. And when I saw him last summer, when he was facing velocity, when he was facing 91, 92, 93 miles an hour, he was catching barrels and he was showing it to the pull side. So I'm pretty bullish on Wyatt Sanford. I still think he's blossoming into the player that he's going to ultimately become. And I'm always rather bullish, I guess, on the high school left-handed hitting shortstop in any draft, especially when you show me tools on the dirt. And so that's why I just think I think Sanford is going to be one of the bigger steals in this class, and he was one of my favorite picks, at least for any team. Pulling him down to what 35, 36. I think that's an awesome value.
Yeah, and for Sanford, I mean, the one thing is, I think the Pirates fans were more just frustrated in the beginning of that, just because they had already taken a shortstop. But here's the thing: is I mean, Chris and I have talked about this. I've talked about this with other people as well. Is that, I mean, aren't those the people that you want? You want like the
Yes.
most athletic players on the field. You want the guys that are the shortstops, the center fielders, the guys that are up the middle, because then you have that flexibility, kind of to move them to other positions. And the Pirates took, 4 shortstops in the first 10 rounds, which is kind of crazy to me. Talk to me a little bit about Deuce. And I know Deuce isn't his given name, but I mean, I saw him, kind of, he wasn't ranked as high, but it definitely, I think it's possible, for him. And there was like a few other players that, they may, not move them, they wouldn't be shortstops. They were looking more towards third base or second base. But what can we talk about with Deuce?
Yeah, so Deuce is definitely going to end up either at second base, third base, or left field. I don't think he's a natural shortstop. And really quickly, to your point, for Pirates fans, if I were to tell you that on July 19th, 2025, Connor Griffin is in center field and Wyatt Sanford is at shortstop, I mean, does that make the fan base feel better? Like, um, the Seattle Mariners right now are revered as having one of the best farm systems in baseball, and they have Cole Young, Felnine Celestin, Colt Emerson, Ty Pete, Michael Arroyo. All of them are playing shortstop. So you can never have enough athletes, like point blank period. Just collect athletes and figure out where they're going to play on the field down the road. But to answer your question on Deuce, he kind of took a step back this year. I think his profile was a little bit more highly regarded coming after the 2023 season. In 2023, it was borderline elite swing decisions, elite bat to ball skills. He hit the ball on the ground a lot. This year, the bat to ball backed up a little bit. Still made very, very good swing decisions and made a ton of contact in the zone. He is a good hitter. Like, he is a good, pure hitter, and I think he's going to hit at the pro level. Where he ends up on defense, we'll see. I don't think he's ever going to be the most physical player. I'm not sure if his raw power is actually going to translate to a wooden bat league, but he's a nice player. I think he's probably more of a utility at the end game here, but again, it's athleticism, it's bat to ball skills, it's mature swing decisions, and I think that can take you a long ways in pro ball.
And with the Pirates, the other thing that they've done a lot of, over the past few drafts, and especially these last two drafts, is they go college heavy arm through some of like the more of the middle rounds, and they seem to be doing pretty well at that. You had Carlson Reed last year, Patrick Riley. There's a number of guys, and they got Hartle and they got Ager, or Ager. I don't know how to pronounce that. That last name always throws me a little bit, but they
Ager,
got
yeah.
those. Yeah, Ager. They got those guys in the middle rounds there, and it kind of seems like that. At least with Hartle, like didn't have the greatest year this past season, but during the previous season he was seen as being a little bit higher. But they definitely do like to kind of focus in on those college arms in the middle rounds.
Yeah, like Josh Hartle. Josh Hartle is going to be an interesting one because he definitely did take a step back this year. The velocity just never came back. In high school, he was 90 to 93. His appendix burst his senior year, and he struggled. I mean, he was 85 to 88 when he came back in high school, and he's just really never regained it. I mean, I think he's topped out at 94. He's routinely 89 to 91. And in a lot of ways, he's not too dissimilar from like Marco Gonzalez, who is pitching with the Pirates now. I know he's been on the shelf for much of this season, but when you have an arm like that, you're going to have to really pinpoint command. You've got to land the cutter up and in under guys' knuckles. You've got to have the changeup working. You've got to pitch on the black. So I think Hartle can find a way to become a low number 4 starter at the next level, but he's going to have a hard time, rising higher than that. Ager is a very, very interesting one. Coming into the 2024 season, a lot of people thought he was going to be a top 50 pick. I mean, Matt Ager was like the cream of the crop. Like, this is a beautiful delivery. Like, it's got the makings of a plus sweeper. He's been up to 94, 95, and it just didn't work out for him this year. He had a hard time getting to the breaking ball. He walked more batters than we were used to. He got hit a little bit harder than we're used to. So I think if you can get Matt Ager back into a place where he's comfortable and where he was at the tail end of 2023 going into this season, you could have something of a second round value, and potentially, I mean, if it all works out, another number 4, maybe a low number 3 starter if you can drag a little bit more value out of that fastball. So he's a really interesting one, and I'll throw one more onto this just because he's probably the most interesting guy that the Pirates drafted. I don't know if they're going to be able to land him, but Gavin Adams out of Florida State, I think, is the guy that Bucco fans need to be talking about. I mean, this is 101 from the right side. It's loose. It's rubber bandy. It's tons of sink. There's definitely some command and control issues, but he was going to be one of the more high octane arms in college baseball this year before he blew out. So we'll see if the Pirates can sign him. But if they can, I mean, that's a guy that can pitch in the eighth or ninth inning if he fails to become a starter, like, and move very, very quickly.
And the one thing, I mean, talking about what the Pirates have done and what it seems like I think people were looking for them to do again this year, and maybe they were scared off a little bit. A few years ago, with Braylon Bishop, they get him to not go to Arkansas and drafted him as a high school bat in the later arms. Last year, they tried to do it with Daniel Cuvée, who ended up going to Miami and absolutely crushing it. He was betting on himself. He went to he's in the Cape right now, and I looked up his numbers, still crushing it, like with the wood
Yeah.
bats. So they kind of didn't do that this year. Um, so I guess my question is, and I'm going to go a completely different direction because they didn't do that. But is there like Pirates fans would be looking? Is there like a diamond in the rough in this draft? Because everybody has fallen in love with Charles McAdoo and what he's been doing at Greensboro this year, what he's continuing to do in Altoona, getting him in the later rounds. Was there anybody that you see that the Pirates drafted that maybe like flew under the radar for other teams and that they were able to pick up?
Yeah, I would probably go with Andrew Patrick out of Wright State. I mean, that's a guy that had fifth or sixth round buzz coming into the year. He was beat up for a lot of the year. I'm trying to remember what it was. Don't quote me on this. It might have been a hamate bone, but I genuinely just cannot remember. So he missed like 2 months of this season. Finally got back to attend the combine. Looked healthy. Looked strong. I think if he would have played all year, there's a good chance that he goes in the middle of day two. So play a little outfield, play a little third base. I think he's a guy that could surprise some people with what he's able to produce at the big league level, or at least up through the high minors. He's a pretty polished stick, and he was really good in 2023. So that would be one guy that I certainly keep my eyes on.
Yeah, and you mentioned the combine, and that's something that we talked about this last time is like what effect that would have on the draft. That we also talked about, the draft league and different stuff like that. I mentioned the Cape because I always bring that up because it kind of seems like that, Ben Charrington must have some scouting going on there. But I did notice, I'm going to have to look into this a little bit deeper, but it definitely seems like that the Pirates draft a decent amount of guys that are at that combine because when I start looking up the guys, you know, it'll be like, okay, was assigned to the combine, assigned to the combine. So that's something I'm definitely going to look into a little bit more. But just kind of overall with this Pirates draft, I mean, everybody's, giving it grades, giving it rankings, different stuff like that. And every draft year is different. So you can't really compare it to different drafts, but you can compare it to, who was available. And honestly, I mean, who is able to sign because, we look at that and I mentioned, players that the Pirates haven't been able to land in previous years. But just kind of like overall, what would you like, grade or rank, this draft for the Pirates?
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty stellar draft for the Pirates. I thought they took some shots on upside. They took some shots on guys that didn't have good 2024 seasons, but have shown the ability to be more more ceiling than what they've shown. Like I would give it a B plus. I honestly think the Connor Griffin pick is going to be one that carries, and this is the case with every team, right? Whoever you take in the first round is going to carry a ton of water. Connor Griffin is going to carry a ton of water for this team. They do really need him to hit. They need him to be, the five tool guy, the potential 4.5, 5 win player that he could be. So that's going to be a big part of it. But honestly, some of the shots that they took in Sterling, Wyatt Sanford, Eddie Rinders, I think Will Taylor out of Clemson is very, very interesting. He's had a roller coaster college career with different injuries and playing football and streakiness. So I think Will Taylor could provide some value. But these arms that Pittsburgh took with Sterling and Hartle and Matt Ager and Gavin Adams, and those are some guys that could end up being big leaguers and valuable big leaguers at that. I think if there was one pick that I probably disagreed with, it would probably be the Josh Hartle pick. I did think that there was some other arms that were on the board in the third round in that $1 million range that would have been a little bit better allocation of resources. But at the same time, at least I don't understand, or I don't know what they signed Hartle for. So if they signed him for 550K or something like that, then it makes a lot of sense. But all in all, I thought this was a stellar draft. I like the blend of college performers and high school prospects, blue chips. So yeah, this is a very very good draft. I think Pittsburgh fans should be excited about this, and yeah, we'll see how it plays out 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Yeah, and Eddie Renders is the one that's it's not that I want to forget him and I don't forget about him, but that was just that was the other, you know, high school shortstop that they picked. And just the stuff I see on him, he looks like a very solid player. May not have been showcased as much as other ones, but definitely looks like he has some solid tools.
Yeah, Eddie Renders is mostly bat. It's mostly hit tool. It's mostly projection in the power department. There's some athleticism there. I don't think he's going to be a shortstop. He probably plays third base. He probably plays left field, second base, one of those spots. But you're betting on the bat there. He had a really, really big spring with the bat. He's a cold weather bat, which has become a really popular demographic to go after in any draft year. So yeah, I would certainly keep an eye on that. I think he could be a pretty big player. Maybe something like a Brandon Lau from the Tampa Bay Rays. That's kind of the projection model that I put on him.
Yeah, see, even when you think you're done, other questions keep on coming out. But I don't have any more questions for you right now, Joe. I'm pretty sure I will at a future date. Anybody that doesn't, please go follow Joe Doyle at Joe Doyle MILB, the Future Star Series. Hopefully, he can take a breath here for at least a little bit until I believe you already have started to rank the guys for next year, though. So not much of a breath.
Yeah, no, I'm actually before we hopped on this podcast, I was moving guys from the 2024 board that are eligible for the 2027 draft over to that board. So it's a you're always fighting, man. You're always fighting. You're always swimming
Yeah.
upstream.
Well, I appreciate you making time, Joe, and I can't wait to talk to you again, man.
All right, we'll see you, man.
If you ever see me out and about in Pittsburgh, you will always recognize me, and not just because of the white beard, but also because of the Y that is always on top of my head, the hat I always wear. The Yins brand, proud partners with Bucs in the Basement. 3 dynasties, 1 brand, Yins. Finally, 1 brand to rep all black and gold. Follow at Shop Yins for new merch drops and giveaways. Order online at www.shopyins, the emphasis on the 2 Z's, high quality comfort, lightweight materials, a new modern look for the black and gold, made for Yins by a Yinzer. Well, I don't have the Y on top of my head today. I do have the Bradenton Marauders because everything starts in Bradenton. And the one thing we didn't talk about with the great guest that Joe Doyle, I always love his insight, is that some of these guys we are not going to see until next year because this draft is going to be a little bit different because of the FCL season ending here from the date of this recording in like 6 days here. So usually would see some of at least the high school bats end up in the FCL, but not going to see that. But I want to do a little bit something different for the top 5 Pirates prospects this week, just because since the last time I did the top 5 Pirates prospects, there has not been much minor league play among the top 4 affiliates. So I was going to take a look at the Dominican Summer League for this. Right now, the Pirates, the DSL Gold team, is in first place in their division, 22-9. While the black team, the Pirates black DSL team, is the exact opposite in their division. They're in last place at 11-19. But I did find some good players, had done some research during this little bit of an all-star break here, watching some games, watching some video, doing some stat checking on some of these guys. So I want to talk about the top 5 Pirates performers that I've seen in the DSL so far this year. And we're going to start with Edward Fiorentino. He is a 17-year-old first baseman, right fielder, left fielder, just signed this past January for $395,000. Currently, over 123 plate appearances, slashing 294, 472, 576 with 5 home runs, 14 extra base hits, 27 walks, 16 Ks. Number 2, also on the gold team, Adolfo Oviedo. Pirates fans love their Oviedos. 19-year-old right-handed pitcher signed in May of 2022, pitched in 2023 last year as well. It's his third season in the DSL. He's looking pretty much about the same as he did last season, except for a little bit more of the pinpointed control. Last year, 34 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 2.60 ERA, a 1.212 whip, 31 Ks, 27 walks. This year, 26 and a third innings, the 2.05 ERA, does have the whip down below 1 at 0.494, but does have 25 Ks to only 7 walks. So seeing a little bit more of that control there, still very young. And then Cesar Aquino, a right-handed pitcher, 19 years old, a 2024 signing, has a 0.82 ERA across 22 innings of work, a 0.727 whip, 15 Ks, 4 walks. And on the Pirates DSL black team, we have Vladimir Pichardo, a 18-year-old right-handed pitcher, was signed in January of 2023 for $750,000. He pitched last year, looks a lot better, just much like the Adolfo Oviedo, much more in the control area because his ERA actually went up. He was 3.67 last year. He's 3.79 this year. We've seen the whip drop because of the walks dropping. A 1.370 last year, a 1.105 this year, 23 Ks last year, 19 Ks this year, 21 walks last year, only 5 this year. And then Andres Villafalane, and he is an outfielder signed in 2023 for $155,000 last year. Only got 39 plate appearances, didn't look great. A 133, 333, 167 slash line, 0 home runs, 1 extra base hit. This year, in about twice as many plate appearances, slashing 333, 378, 515, 1 home run, but 8 extra base hits. I mean, we got a lot of young kids here. We got a lot of guys that are repeating down in the DSL. It's kind of the crunch that you're seeing from Bradenton to the FCL to the DSL at this point in time. Talked to, Eric Birdland a few times here about how there's guys in the FCL or the repeating that could be in Bradenton or maybe should be in Bradenton at this point in time. They were a little bit older for the level, possibly quote unquote repeating that level. And we kind of see that trickling down because there's some guys that maybe could have moved up with a few of these guys among that could have moved up to the FCL in the DSL. Really, going to see some movement next year. But yeah, those are your top 5 Pirates prospects focusing on the DSL for this week. And we all know what's up is up next. I am going to be doing some repeats here, and I know that. And I tried to go back through my notes and everything and look to see which one of these that I've done previously. But this is Fatheads Brewing. They have a nice little 4-pack sampler pack that they always put a new beer in, a seasonal beer, an experimental beer, what have you. But these are their IPA packs. So you're always getting the Sunshine Daydream. You're always getting the Hud Header. You're always getting getting usually a hazy IPA. Right now, it is the Groovy Juice. So it's Sunshine, Headhunter, Groovy Juice right now. I know that I've at least done the Sunshine and the Headhunter before, but let's just go down through those and we'll get to their new one here, the one that I've had for the first time. So the Groovy Juice Hazy IPA, 7.1%. Give that one a 400, knock it down to 350. The Sunshine Daydream Session IPA. This is like one of my favorite beers from them, 4.9%, easy drinking. Give that one a 425, knock it down to 320, 375. The Headhunter IPA, 7.5%. Used to be my favorite beer from there. As I've said, some of the heavier ones I don't drink as much, don't drink as many of. But if I'm just going to have one beer from there, the Headhunter is a great one to have. Give that one a 7. Give that one a 400. Knock it down to 350. And then they have Wicked Willie's IPA, and this is the new one for this 4-pack, coming in at 7%. Has a little bit of a mix of all of these aside from the hazy, but it basically it drinks more like a session, but has more of the alcohol and the hops of the Headhunter. So it's a nice mix of both of those. Give that one a 425. Knock that down to 375. So all really good beers. If you would see that 4-pack out there, I wouldn't hesitate to pick it up. But until next time, guys, let's go Indians. Let's go Curve. Let's go Hoppers. Let's go Bradenton Marauders. Let's go FCL and DSL Pirates. And next time, this time next week, I'm going to be in Greensboro. So I'm pretty excited about that. First time in Greensboro.